Disclaimer. All views expressed on What Makes Us Fire are solely those of the person or persons giving them. What Makes Us Fire does not represent or claim to represent any particular city or fire department, and therefore make the claim that all views and standpoints are affiliated with What Makes Us Fire and with What Makes Us Fire only. Any mention of certain fire departments or cities within the interviews are solely for informational and opinion-based dialogue. In short, if you have a problem with what was published, just say something about it and don't be a Richard. What's up, What Makes Us Fire Family? Thank you for joining us on this episode. I have Miss Sarah Ann, better known as the Outdoor Medic, on for this episode. She's something pretty special. She has created a platform for herself in that she shares what the outdoors does for her and her mental health. And then she tries to share that message with other people that are struggling with mental health issues. She's trying to create something to help others by using the outdoors, by using hunting as her medium to unwind, to de-stress. We talk mental health in this episode, and it can be a little bit unnerving for some. Get a little deep, but that's okay. Mental health is not an easy issue to talk about, and it's not a real comfortable issue to talk about. But Miss Sarah Ann and I dive into it a little bit. We talk about where she's from and how she found out that this medium, the outdoors, hunting, and then creating a podcast to share her stories has helped her. It's helped her stay alive. What Makes Us Fire Family, please help me welcome Miss Sarah Ann, the Outdoor Medic. All right, Miss Sarah Ann, thank you very much for joining What Makes Us Fire, the Outdoor Medic, on Instagram and TikTok. How we met. How are you doing?
I'm actually doing pretty good this morning.
Pretty good? Feeling good?
Yeah, I guess. It hasn't gotten busy yet, so.
Hasn't gotten busy yet? You got anything planned for the day?
I have 3 children, so Lord knows what I'm doing today.
Holy crap, 3 children. I only have 2, thank God. How's it up there? You're from, I want just to let everybody know, I met you on Instagram. I saw what you were doing with your stories. I saw that you also had your own podcast out there. And the description underneath your profile picture on Instagram basically just said, I'm an EMT and I use the outdoors for mental health aspects and stuff. And I was like, wow, it's a cool concept, because though I'm not able to go outdoors often until hunting season comes around, really, I totally get the getting out there and it almost being a mind reset and a release. And I was like, wow, that's something I could really relate to. So I took the shot in the dark and messaged you. You replied back, which was really awesome, and I greatly appreciate it. I have learned that in this business of podcasting, you cannot be afraid to be told no.
Yep.
That's
100%.
How did you start with this? Where did the idea come from?
I actually listened to a lot of hunting podcasts, and I noticed that there wasn't a lot of women that podcasted, and I noticed that there wasn't really a lot of first responder based podcasts. There is a lot of military podcasts, veterans, and them doing their thing, but I wanted to tell the story about how I use my hunting experience as a good mental health healing aspect of my life, because I'm a medic. I'm a critical care paramedic at a hospital, and I am a volunteer paramedic for my local service, and I struggle with depression. I really struggle with depression. I am on meds. I am in therapy, and none of that seems to be helping me, but the outdoors has always provided me with a release. And I had some friends that were podcasting. I have some really good friends in the industry that push me.
Mm-hmm.
They push me a lot harder than I really want to be pushed sometimes. And I went to the ATA show in Indianapolis, which is the Archery Trade Association show, and I took business cards. I kind of played with the idea. I told people this is what I wanted to do, and pretty much everybody was 100% on board. Like, go for it, go for it. And I'm like, oh, maybe in the next year. I think like the following week I had started like hardcore pushing out episodes. Then I went to Harrisburg in Pennsylvania, and I was featured on a podcast. And then I just, from there on, it's been almost every week or every 2 weeks I get an episode out. It's kind of like EMS. I do what I want, and then if I get an episode out, I get one out. If I don't, I don't. I mean, I'm busy too, so.
Right. How has your following grown with this concept being put out there?
It's still pretty small. I have 31 subscribers to the podcast. I've had over 700 listens, but I try to get a wide variety of guests. Some weeks we don't cover the mental health aspect as much, and some weeks that's basically all we focus on. I like to get people that are in the military, first responders, just anybody that wants to talk about mental health, because I do believe that there's a big stigma even among the people that talk about it, that they don't always, we're not always honest, and
No,
it's okay to not be okay, and
I
that's
love
just basically my thing.
That's literally what I told Jason Patton. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago. That I think the culture is starting to change. Maybe slower in some different areas of the country and different facets of life. I am going to assume, being out in the country, and you got a lot of country boys, manly men, or try to portray themselves as such. Really hard for them to talk about feelings and mushy shit like that.
Yep. And
I could have. Go ahead.
Sorry. I have been told that I have a way about getting these people to confess their sins, basically, with their mental health aspects. I ask hard questions, and they answer them, and that's actually pretty wonderful. I like that they're so honest with me.
Yeah, I've noticed doing the podcast that when you put a microphone in front of somebody, and I've heard it like 4 times already. I was so nervous. I didn't think I was going to have anything to talk about. But as soon as I sat down next to me, put a microphone in front of their face, put the headphones on, it was flow. It just natural flow, and all of a sudden just bleh, vomiting information, feelings, and everything else. And it's a crazy phenomenon that I'm learning is beneficial, because people really do need to realize that we show anger. That's fine. We win $100 on a scratch off. We show happiness. That's fine. We show empathy when we see somebody hurting. That's okay. But when we're sad and depressed, oh God, no.
Yep.
All other human emotions, that's fine. Sad or depressed, nah, can't do that. And I think when you allow people to see that it's actually okay, it's a normal human emotion, that it's okay to, like you said, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to talk about not being okay. Because then at least you're allowing yourself to take in information to possibly help you and or help somebody else in the future. I'm not going to say the name, but last night on a page that I'm on with Facebook, a gentleman just posted, "Hey, can somebody message me? I'm in a bad spot. It's, I'm crying," stuff like that. And I don't know what it was. I messaged him, and just hearing him talk, like, I didn't say, I know how you feel. I didn't say, I get
Mhm.
it. I don't know how he feels. Me and him can go through the same situation and feel about it completely different.
Mhm.
But at the end of us just messaging each other, he's in the UK too, by the way. I'm just
Oh,
some,
geez.
yeah, I'm just some Texas boy. But they're
Mhm.
following the page, and I messaged him, and at the end of it, he was just like, "Thank you, just thank you." And
Mhm.
it's crazy how people really think it's that big of an issue to reach out.
A lot of that has to do, I think, with how people perceive them. I
Hmm.
know that I had to edit one of my episodes because uh, the gentleman that I was interviewing was telling a story, and his friend literally freaked out about it and said, "Edit this part out because I don't want anybody to think differently of me." And I had to edit that part out just so that way the friend would feel comfortable, and I didn't want to ruin any friendships or anything. But it's like sometimes people don't understand the depth of, this. It's okay, like the conversation had nothing to do with anything horrible. It's just that he struggled with PTSD and that his friend noticed a change, and it had no names. It was basically saying that he saw a difference in him when he took him out turkey hunting, and he was like upset, like to the point of yelling at this person. So I edited it out, and I'm like, I hope I didn't make anything bad for him, but it was like, it's okay to not be okay. And in one of my other episodes, the guy's like, raise your hand because we all suffer from it. I mean, whether we want to admit it or not, just raise your damn hand. So,
I find it funny how we can have this feeling of depression, of being completely nothing, of having this PTSD, this trauma where we just want to end it all, or we just want to get away and not be, but yet we're still concerned of others' perceptions of us. It's like,
yep.
it doesn't, to, it took me a while to get that. It's like, if I
Mm-hmm.
really don't care this much about myself, like me and myself, I'm having this turmoil within myself and I don't care about myself this much. But that guy over there, I want to make sure he doesn't think about me that way.
Yeah. And
It,
I
it
think that everybody has to get to a point where they don't give a crap about what somebody else thinks about them. I know that for a while I was concerned, about, oh, the community is going to look differently on me. My family's going to look differently on me. And I got to the point where I'm like, no, I need to be okay. I need to be okay to take care of my kids. I need to be okay to do my job. I need to be okay for me. And I don't care what anybody thinks about me. And if they think any less of me, I don't give a shit.
right. And you shouldn't. You absolutely shouldn't. You're doing it for you.
Mm-hmm. That's like the concept of, you have to get the people to realize that, and a lot of them still worry about what other people think.
Yeah. And I don't understand why they worry about other people think if they don't care about themselves so much. It's, and it was the same thing with me. It's, I didn't care about myself so much, but I didn't want my friends or my family looking at me any different, which just, it logically doesn't make sense. You don't care about
Yep.
yourself, then you shouldn't care about what anybody else thinks.
Hmm.
Yeah, what it is, what it is. Can I ask you a personal question
Yeah,
about
go ahead.
depression and PTSD? When did
Hmm.
you actually realize that you were suffering from those illnesses? Because they are illnesses, from depression, PTSD, and trauma.
De-
When did it actually become like right in the face, forefront, smacked your face against the wall on it?
I'm gonna have to say when I was like 14,
Mm-hmm.
I never was diagnosed with anything, but I the earliest memories of me being suicidal, I'll say, would be about 14, and then it came to light when I was 34. So 20 years of suffering and hiding to the point where I was done. I couldn't take it anymore. So I went and saw my physician because I was tired. I was just tired. I was crying and I couldn't do it anymore.
So at 14 years old, I'm not going to ask what triggered that. I mean, that's on you. You
Mhm.
just, that's when you realized that was an issue.
Yes. And then probably the PTSD more when I started working in healthcare. I had a couple really bad calls like back to back. I wasn't on the ambulance yet. I was just working in the hospital, but we had a couple really bad traumas and they never left. So,
I am with you there. I still battle some demons from a few of the calls that I've been on. And just to give you a little bit of a background from me, I'm a firefighter. I've been in the EMS realm since 2006, EMS fire, and I have been in my current company, my the department I work for 11 years this November. Now, I worked in California and everything, but I've always been in that realm. I worked in a hospital setting, is in the ER as an ER tech, so I saw a lot of stuff there too.
yep.
But it's a little bit different when you're walking into somebody's house, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit more personal. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, you're pumping on somebody's chest and you've got their family begging you to do something. It's like, well, they're pretty cold. There's not much I can do, but you do it anyway.
Right. And I think what hits us the most and what the hardest part about that is not necessarily the person that we're pumping the chest on,
No, it's the
because
family.
yeah, their pain's done.
Mm-hmm.
Not 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 to dehumanize it, but their pain is
Yep.
done, and you're seeing the hurt from the people that love them. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that if you're empathetic at all,
Yep.
that's gonna hit you.
Yep. And I think that's what's been the worst, like with all of my calls. It's not necessarily the call. It's the family that's left to pick up the pieces.
Right. When did you get into the EMS field?
I got my EMT in 2015, and then I completed my paramedic in 2018. I completed my critical care in 19. So I haven't been doing this very long.
Oh, so you are fairly new in the service.
Yes. I didn't know that you could be paramedic without being attached to fire until like I was way older. So otherwise I
Well,
probably would have done this from the get-go.
yeah. What brought you to that? Really? I mean, you've only been in it since 2015, you said? So
Mhm.
almost 5 years.
Mhm.
And what after that? I'm gonna ask the cardinal sin question. How old are you?
I'm 35.
35. So am I.
Mhm.
So you started at 30, getting
Mhm.
into this field. What pushed you to do that?
Well, I worked in retail prior to my healthcare experience, and my boss was an alcoholic. And like all good people, our coworkers tried to help him. He was very resistant. It's one of those deals where if you don't want help, you're not going to accept the help that you're given.
Yeah.
And we all tried to help him, and I realized that my niche was not working in a store stocking shelves. My niche was helping people. So I went and got my CNA, worked in a nursing home for a while. Then I moved on to the hospital setting, and I got really interested in emergency medicine because I really enjoy the you see the patient, you take care of their problems, you send them on, you admit them, or you send them home. I
Mhm.
like the fact that you don't have to have people living there like you did at the nursing home, and you got to see something different every day. So I went and got my EMT so I could help my community, help the hospital, and then my community was having some paramedics that were getting up there in age. We only had a couple anyway, so they kind of encouraged me to go and get my medic. So I went and got my medic just for the sole purpose of I was going to medic for my community and continue to work at the hospital. And I ended up quitting at the hospital and going on a transport service for a year and a half. And I absolutely love the transport service.
Really?
So,
Whoa,
yes, I know
gosh,
I'm one of those
whoa,
people.
you're. It might be different for paramedics, but I tell you
Yeah,
what, as a basic in the transport
yeah, I
realm,
know.
that
Well,
personally.
I also had my critical care, so I mean I could take like all the critical patients. So I absolutely enjoyed the patients that made me use my brain.
Hmm.
So I like taking them to where they had to go. And it was also the aspect of I only had to deal with them for an hour and a half, maybe 3 hours at the most. So it was the fact that I could use my brain for that little bit and then give them to the place that they needed to go. So, and then they were doing what? They were doing 24-hour shifts, and then I switched back to 12-hour shifts. So I quit because of the 12-hour shifts, and I went back to the hospital.
Okay. Is that where you're currently at?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for the background too. So now we can get a little bit more of an understanding. When did you realize doing this job might trigger some of that depression and PTSD from the past?
Probably like day one, like seeing what you see. It's like, well, this is probably not going to end well for me, but I feel the calling a lot more to help people than I do care about myself.
So you were willing to sacrifice your mental health to
Yep.
help others.
Yep. And to this day, I still do it every day.
Absolutely. And people who are listening in your community, if they do listen to this, I mean, I'm sure they understand completely.
I'm very transparent. I've learned that you can't hide it. I mean, you can not go through what we go through and not be affected. So I'm very transparent, hoping that other people step forward and say it's okay to not be okay.
Right. When did you decide to start actually openly talk about it? I know you said you had the idea. Some friends took you to the archery show and you started passing out. But what was it? What was that one thing? Because something triggers us to do this.
I'll have to say it was July 10th of 2019. That was the day that I had a normal physical at my doctor, and I bawled all the way down there. I sat in the parking lot for 15 minutes telling myself to get my shit together. They're going to put me in the loony bin. And I went in and I was fine. And the nurse said, "How are you feeling today?" And I just started bawling. And she took her pen and pushed the Kleenex box closer to me and said, "Okay." And then from then on, it was, I know I'm not okay. They started me on meds that day. And I knew that I had to start talking about this because it's comes from my work. It comes from my previous experiences. It all stems from my life, and I want people to know, that it's okay. Like I'm a good-hearted human being, and I have depression. Like it does not affect me to the point of where I'm laying in bed all the time, but there's going to be days where I'm not going to get out of bed and I need somebody to come and say, "Get your ass up, get dressed, let's go." And I have some really good friends that actually, "How you doing today?" And I'll be like, "I'm fine." And they'll be like, "How are you really doing today?" And then I'll be like, "Okay, you caught me. This is how I'm feeling."
Have you noticed that talking about it on the podcast and sharing your experiences and those of others actually helps you as well? It's almost like a self-therapy.
Yeah. And my therapist is 100% on board with me doing it. He says it is one of those things that you're a natural healer. You want to help people, but you're also one of those people that will push yourself off to the side. And doing this helps address the things that you feel too.
And I have found that to be the same with me as well. And I think a lot of people that actually take the step to start talking about it, there's this realization that that's why they say you need to talk about it, because there is something to talking about it, and it making it doesn't fix the problem. That takes a long time, but it makes it better.
Yes. And talking about it makes it more tolerable for me because the meds aren't working. The therapy is very slow going. So without the podcast, without being outside, I would be back where I was.
I'm also on meds as well for depression. I have been diagnosed. I was also diagnosed with ADHD just 3 years ago, and I didn't know I had it. However, my wife was very much like, that makes so much fucking sense. But I went, there was something wrong. I knew there was something wrong. This was recently, and I knew I needed to get help. And so actually the medication part for me is very recent. And when I say recent, it's less than a year that I've
Mm-hmm.
actually been on this journey with at least the meds. But
Mm-hmm.
I've also noticed that when I talk to people and I'm able to share my story without, I really do have to fight that, please don't look at me that way. I really
Mm-hmm.
have to fight that caring about how somebody's going to look at me still. But I realized really quick that I can't be a hypocrite if I want to help people and I want them to go get help and them to talk about it, but then I'm not willing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my podcast is that. My podcast is What Makes Us Fire. The idea is twofold because What Makes Us Fire can be, here is a statement. I am telling you this is what makes us fire. But it's also a question that I'm trying to find the answer to. And when I say what makes us fire, that means everybody and anybody that we come in contact with or work with as firefighters, they're part of that life because they share the same experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Job might be a little bit different, but the experiences are just the same. The
Yep.
stresses are just the same. And we rely on each other sometimes when you have to call the fire department for a lift assist or to get into a house because the person inside's unconscious and you don't have the tools to break in. Whatever the case may be, there's
Yep.
a relationship there. So I always consider those people actually part of the fire life. We recently absorbed EMS into the fire service in the city that I work with only about 7 years ago. So we're still going through that growing process because it was a health department thing and now it's a fire service thing.
Yep.
But even before then, we were working with them so much that you're part of the life. You, Sarah Ann, are part of the fire life in that you work with us, you think with us, you deal with the same patients as we do, you talk with us, you have friends that are firefighters, you have associates, you have acquaintances, whatever the case may be. The fact that you opened your mouth and said hi to a firefighter made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, you are part of that life.
I absolutely loved my time when I spent time in Waterloo with their fire department doing my training. And those guys, like the firehouse life, it is second to none. And that's why I think I liked the transport company that I worked with, because it was so similar to, hanging out at the station in between calls. Like it was like a family. And I really love that. And you guys, hats off to you guys for doing what you do, because I don't think I could ever do the job that you guys do. And I know that some people say that they could never do the job that I do, but it is what it is.
Well, I'll tell you what, I stopped. I don't know if you remember that EMS had basic, and at one point there was intermediate.
Yep.
There was paramedic. Well, I finished my intermediate. I never got my national registry for it, but I did finish all that training and everything. Hats off to the paramedics. You taking on that responsibility with the cardiac drugs is just too much responsibility. Hey,
Yeah.
I'll push Narcan. Sure. Do you need sugar? Why not? Oh, I am not pushing a dentist in to stop your heart. Not going to do it. Not going to be me. Because I know it'll be that one time where 99% of the time it works, but when I do it, it's going to be that 1% where that reset button didn't work. And damn it. So,
Yep.
so
I know that those cardiac drugs are definitely something that's kind of scary.
To me, it was just, I came to the realization that it was definitely much more of a responsibility than I was willing to take on.
And that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand. Like everybody's like, oh, the EMTs are here. The EMTs are here. And I don't get offended. Like, they call us ambulance drivers. I don't care. Whatever. I would give anything to drive the ambulance. I mean, really, because that means I'm driving and not responsible for the patient. But it's just that thing. Like, there's a lot of people in the general public that don't understand the difference between an EMR, an EMT, an AEMT, and a medic, and how much the responsibility jumps up to somebody that's in the medic shoes versus the EMT who just, you know, helps the medic sometimes. Or if you're on a service where the EMTs take the call, then they have to be on their toes and be ready to perform and do their job to get the patient to the hospital. Because there's some EMTs that I work with, the medics here, they can do whatever they want. And I know that there's some medics out there that, oh, EMTs are shit. No, that we're all on the same team. And that's part of it. Like, just because I can do all these extra special skills does not mean that I want to. I will if I have to, but my EMTs are just as important to me as my drivers and everybody else that's on scene with me.
Well, thank God you don't have that paragod aspect.
No. Oh my God, I hate paragods. They drive me so crazy.
Yeah. I think every department or business or anything like that has them.
Yeah. Like I said, if I can BLS a call and still take the call myself, I will BLS a call. And I mean, I will do the most least invasive thing to my patient, because for one, sometimes doing all that fancy stuff is more detrimental. And for two, if they don't need it, then why would you do it?
That's a good question. And I think a lot of hospitals nowadays are fighting with that, especially with the whole COVID stuff going on. I hear there's a huge issue debate on whether or not to put them on vents and stuff, because it's a lot of studies showing out that as soon as you put them on a vent, you actually causing more harm than good. Yep. That's a different conversation.
Yep, that's something else.
Yeah. When did you realize, we're going to go back to you going into using the outdoors for your mental health. When did you realize that being outdoors and hunting and archery, when did you realize that, holy crap, this is really helping me deal with life?
When I became a mom.
Really?
Yeah, because there is a big misconception, I think, that women are supposed to stay home and take care of their children and basically give up their whole life. And I'm not saying that men are bad, but if a man wants to go on a hunting trip or a man wants to go do something, they don't question them. And then if I want to go do something, like if I want to go on a hunting trip out of state, well, what are you going to do with your kids? Well, they have a father. You know, my husband is perfectly capable of taking care of my children. And it's like, why would, now if a man says that, they're gonna be like, oh cool, where are you going and stuff like that. But there's just this huge misconception that the woman has to stay home, and it's very frustrating. But at the same sense, like when I became a mom, I needed a little bit of alone time, and the only way I could get my alone time was saying, hey, can you watch the kids for 3 hours? I'm going to go out squirrel hunting, or I'm going to go out hunting, and I'm going to just use that as, 3 hours of alone time. Do I go out hunting as much as I want to? Hell no. Like, my kids are busy. My kids play sports and stuff like that. Do I miss some of their sporting stuff so I can go do stuff that I want? Yes, I do. And I have to balance that, because there are some things that I do enjoy, and they do, because they're so busy, like on the weekends, I will miss their stuff, and they understand. They think it's cool, Mom, go do your thing and then come back.
Well, it's good that they understand that, because in the service that we're in, the civil service that we're in, one of the first things they always tell you is scene safety, right? And what's scene safety for? Is to protect yourself, right? Make sure that you're protected first, then your partner, and then the public. Why? Because if you're not good,
help anybody. Yep.
Can't help anybody else. So the fact that they understand that concept is bravo for kids, and that's awesome. My kids are actually very much the same as well, but this is the life they've always known. They haven't known anything else, nothing different. I've
Mhm.
always gone every third day for 48 hours at a time, sometimes not home for dinner all the time. It's just been a norm for them.
Yeah.
So I've been very lucky that they understand that.
Hmm.
So,
Mine are also getting to the age where they're starting to want to go along with. My oldest is 12. My middle turns 11. I hang up next Friday,
oh,
and my youngest turns 8. So they're getting to the point where they enjoy going along, and I don't mind taking them. I don't take them all the time because that's still my time. But if they say, "Hey, mom, can I go with you on, Friday?" Yeah, sure, let's go. But I'm gonna go all day Saturday myself, type thing.
right. Absolutely. When did you realize that the by yourself out there, and what is it about being by yourself out there that allows you to decompress?
The quiet, and it's a different kind of peace. Like I could sit in my yard and watch the cars drive by, but going out into the timber where there's no other human life, it's a sense of peace. Like you can hear the trees rustling with the wind. You can hear the squirrels, running around doing their thing. You see the deer come in, and there's a lot of times where I'm out there and I will watch deer and I will forget what I'm supposed to be doing, and that's out hunting them. And I'm watching these deer, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I probably should, decide if I'm going to be, drawing back or something. And it's like, well, I'm caught up in the moment. It's fine. There is also like a certain type of respect. Like whenever I harvest something, I kill something, it's I give thanks to God because he's the one that brought it there. And I do a lot of reconnecting out there with him. And I feel like that's more my church than any other church that I've been to. So it helps spiritually, it helps emotionally, it just helps balance out my soul. And I don't really know how to put it in any other words besides that. I mean, it might sound strange, but that's how it helps me.
It does not sound strange to me. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can
Mhm.
sit in a tree stand 15 feet up in the tree in a pine with it swaying back and forth with the wind for 14 hours, see a damn thing. I can do that for 2, 3 days straight, go home. How was your hunting trip? Fucking amazing.
Yep.
you know, I didn't get to draw back once, doesn't matter. My hunting trip was amazing.
Hmm.
And I remember it was funny that you said that the quiet, but somebody brought it up to me and they're like, well, if it's so quiet, aren't you in your head a bit more? Like,
No.
aren't you fighting that now because you don't have those distractions? It's like, no, it's hard to explain. even
Yeah.
though even though it's just me in my head, it's peace.
Yes.
I'm not fighting that shit talker in the back of my head, my voice. I'm not
Hmm.
fighting that guy. That guy, I don't know what happens to him when I'm out there. Everybody has that little devil voice that's in their
Yep.
voice. You shithead, you're pathetic. This
Yep.
happened to you. Don't you remember? You're you're scum. But when you get out there, it's almost like the outdoors, the nature silences them for me.
Hmm.
It,
I also suffer from anxiety, so like usually I'm holding that down too, and I have to do it with a straight stoic face. I can't show any emotion on a call. Like if I'm really worked up, it has to just stay internalized. And when I get out there, I feel it leaving. It just goes, and I don't have any care in the world. I don't think about it. It's just gone. And that's probably the most relaxed I ever am, is being out there.
you find it almost unexplainable or that hard to
Yeah.
explain when somebody asks you, hey, being outdoors is really this beneficial for your mental health. How so? What do you tell them?
It,
Like,
it's hard to tell them. I mean, it's hard to explain, but it makes me feel like I I can just exist and I don't have to worry about anything. So
how often do you go out there and really take the time to be like, how often do you go out there as a necessity? Like, I'm going, I need to set this time to go. And then how often is it, hey, you know what? I'm going to go. And then it's just on the whim.
It's I usually go at least once every 2 weeks just for myself, but I try to get outside every day just because my kids have something outside, or I go out and walk the dog for a while, just something, but something where I really go and release all my feels. It's at least once every couple weeks.
Once every couple of weeks. Well, you're very lucky. I live in
Yeah. Well, I live in the country too, so.
it must be a little bit easier. I live in a suburb south of Houston, and the closest national forest is about an hour, hour and a half away, depending on the traffic. So it takes me a little bit of time to get up there. And Houston weather sucks during the summer. So
It's
going,
hot.
yeah, I gotta make a trip up there to check my camera. Me and a buddy went scouting. We put our cameras up, and I need to get back out there. It's been about 2.5 weeks, and I'm probably gonna only have one picture. I swear it.
Or you'll
But
have like a leaf and you'll have 400 pictures. That's
that,
usually what happens to me.
yeah, that too. A whole bunch of leaves falling. Have you thought about maybe inviting others to come with you to the outdoors to kind of share how it helps almost meditate you or releases that anxiety and depression?
That's actually a goal of mine, is to start some sort of nonprofit company to help either outfit somebody to get them outdoors or to actually take them on a hunt, a hike, a fishing trip, whatever. Down the road, that's what I want to do. I want to get more first responders outdoors because it helps heal, and because it's definitely a life-changing event, and then a lot of them need the camaraderie that they get from working in a firehouse, working on a service, and it's just another form of a brotherhood.
When you talk to people, obviously you tell them, "Hey, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just giving you my personal experiences and what works for me." Have you thought about maybe expanding your education in that realm?
Actually, yes. I'm kind of maxed out on my EMS certifications. The critical care is the highest you can get in Iowa. And I have my bachelor's in biology. So I was actually considering going back to school and getting my PA. And if I did that, I would want to focus on emergency medicine and probably mental health.
When do you think that would be something you would start?
the
If you
next couple of
decided to,
years.
yeah.
The next couple of years.
Well, I look forward to hearing if you do that, because right now, the fact that you're even sharing your experiences and what works for you, and then hoping that somebody will reach out and be like, "Hey, that might work for me. How can I get in doing this?" The idea that you're putting out there to ask for the help, for one, use what's available to you. For you, it's being outdoors, your hobby,
Mhm.
and allow yourself to decompress. Those three ideas really, I think, are huge when it comes to anybody having a PTSD or depression, but in particular, people in our field. And I think
Yes.
because you're within that field, you'd be really beneficial as an advocate for civil service people.
And that's kind of my goal, because in Iowa, EMS is not an essential service. EMS is volunteer. We get no tax money. My community is really lucky because we do get some tax money, but there are other communities around that don't have volunteers, and they have to wait 20, 30 minutes for somebody to get there in an ambulance in some situations. And it's scary because if you call 911 because your loved one is down, you have to do what dispatch tells you to do, and that's CPR. And you could be doing CPR for 20 minutes before somebody shows up.
Wow.
And I was just there. They never made it an essential service. Now I know states like Wisconsin, they have it as an essential service, and they get tax money and they get good wages. As a paramedic, I don't get paid what people get paid throughout the country. Iowa sucks for paying their EMS. And like I said, I'm blessed on the volunteer side because our community really does take care of us. Our community really does care about us, but not all communities are the same.
No, and it's crazy hearing your story because I know my first department was a volunteer department. We had a deal with our water board, the water commission for the city, and they're the ones that dictated what kind of new equipment we can get. And, you know, if we're going to get paid per call or whatever, it's crazy how these small communities are so lacking in what the rest of the country considers normal. You call 911, you get an ambulance within 5 minutes.
And a lot of people they don't know, and that's just part of the problem is they don't know any better. Like communities have to provide law enforcement, they have to provide fire, but they don't have to provide an ambulance. And like I said, our community is really lucky, but they don't necessarily know that other communities don't have that luxury. And it's a shame because our volunteer population is getting older. Like I'm considered a young medic at 35,
which would be about mid-range on anywhere.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm the youngest medic on my service.
Oh wow!
At my volunteer service, and the next medic is probably 15 years older than me.
Do you think maybe having fire service being more open to taking in the EMS service would help that situation?
No, because our firefighters they don't necessarily want to be EMT certified. They're CPR certified, and if we need them for extra people, they will come. But there's just no interest. Like all the youth, like my age and younger, are too busy. And like a few of them join the fire department because that's pictured as cool. You know, it's not cool to go to paramedic school for 2 years and work hard and have a job somewhere else and then do this as a volunteer. Like it's not worth it to them.
So it's definitely going to have to be a change of mindset. Really.
It's going to have to be a change of mindset, or else there's going to be just paid services from hospitals coming to these communities.
That's sad. That's actually
it's very sad. And in my service, surrounding us, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we have 5 no transport services that we bridge to, and we have an advanced service the next town over, and we sometimes have to tier with them because they don't have volunteers during the day.
Wow. So rural America, extreme rural America, is having a pretty hard time with their medical service.
Yes, because at least in Iowa, a lot of our volunteers are older.
Well, I've actually noticed it in other parts of the country when we go through.
I can't speak for everybody else. That's why I'm like,
No, I understand, but I've noticed a similarity in other small towns as well. That everybody's with the volunteer department. That's awesome. But the closest EMS service is this big town over that's 30, 40 minutes away. And the reason why I asked if you thought if fire service adopted EMS and made it part of fire service and started, that might help, because then now when people get into the fire service, just so you guys know, nationwide, this is happening nationwide. If you're not a paramedic, good luck getting into the fire department. Nationwide, if you want to get onto a paid career fire department, the shift is happening. If you're not a paramedic, it's going to be really hard for you to find a career job if this is something you want to do as a career, as a firefighter.
Yep. And that in the 2 services that I did my time on, one of them was a paramedic only service. Like they don't even take EMTs. And the other one is you can be an EMT or you can be a medic, but they prefer you to have your medic.
Right. And if you have your medic, more likely than not, you'll be hired.
Hmm.
We have a nationwide shortage of paramedics.
And that's
It,
because we don't get paid. Like, we don't get
no,
paid what nursing do. And people, they they go to nursing because they can get paid more and their hours are better, you
right.
know?
And they can only do things when the doctor tells them
I know, right?
to. Where us in the field,
I do what I
we
want.
exactly we keep the patient alive until we can get them to you, the doctor's third hand. I always make fun of my mother. She's a nurse. She was an ER
Hey,
nurse.
my mom's a nurse too.
Yeah. she would make fun of me because when I first started, it was ambulance driver. Anyway, we're
Yep.
going to show that. I want to start kind of. We've only been talking for maybe 30, 40 minutes, and we really got a lot of that information out. But I want your idea, your perspective on how you think, other than doing your podcast, how do you think getting the word out of that term, it's okay to not be okay? What do you think is the best way to do that? Other than, I mean, obviously we are trying with what we're doing on our podcast. We're trying to show that it's okay to talk about it. We want you to talk about it. We're here for you if you need to talk about it. We have our own shit. What else do you think there is that we can do? Maybe not just you and me, but as a community, as a whole, as a nation, as humanity, what can we do to put it out there that it's okay?
Ugh. I I take every opportunity I can to go on other podcasts to talk about it, just because at least a little bit of exposure to maybe a different platform is good. And I know that I went on a podcast previously and they wanted to know about like medical emergencies in the field, like what they could do for like the normal everyday no medically trained background person. And at the end, I just made a plug for my podcast, and we had like a 5-minute conversation about mental health and first responders and how they had no idea. So I think a lot of the general public just has no idea. So I think getting on different platforms that you wouldn't normally get on is how I'm going to do my best. I mean, obviously sharing on social media, continuing to have guests on that maybe come from different backgrounds, talk about it. But I mean, until people are more willing to accept that mental health issues are normal and that everybody has some sort of mental health issue sometime in their life, I think that it's going to be very difficult. And I feel like the coronavirus maybe helped with that, because you had people taken out of their norm and they lost their shit. Like, people are going stir crazy because they can't do what they normally do. And this is the most I've heard people talk about mental health in my whole entire life, just because, you know, they're talking about, well, check on your friends because everybody's going through this and we're not okay and stuff like that. But it's like, this is how I feel every day of my life. You know, like, this is something that needs to have more attention, because there's people out there that have it worse, and there's people out there that kill themselves over this. And if somebody can hear the message that it's okay to not be okay, maybe they'll stay, and maybe they won't. I mean, you
There's
never
only,
know what somebody's thinking.
right, and there's only so much we can do as advocates, and sometimes it's hard to really remind yourself of that. That even though we're advocates, even though we're putting the word up, even though we really want people to listen and take that step, there is that piece that we have no control over, and it's that person's personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
That aspect we have no control over is someone's personal responsibility.
Yep.
All we can do is try and put the idea, plant the seed, and something will make it grow for them to do something.
And hopefully that little seed is enough to say, hey, I don't want to do this. Like, let me try this. And then if that doesn't work, then maybe, you know, just get them to stop for a second and take a breather.
Well, get in contact with you and go hunting.
Yeah. I'm trying to partner with some people and try to get help all over the United States, at least for right now. Just so that way, like if somebody's in Florida or somebody's in California or something, like I'm not gonna fly out there because for one, I'm working EMS, I don't have the funds. Like we're gonna be real. And for two, I want them to know that there's somebody in their area that they can connect with, that they can maybe make a friend with, that they can go out and enjoy doing something with, that, you know, I can't obviously drop everything and go to all these people, but I want them to know that I do care and that I do want them to get out and experience it, and I will do everything in my power to help.
I think maybe me and you should work on that. That's actually a really good idea. So in the fire service, we are a union department, and we International Association of Firefighters. And our national union, which comprises of Canada and American firefighters, mental health is starting to become very, very prevalent in the forefront, which is great. It's good. We need it. And they even created this place called the IAFF Center of Excellence. Anybody out there that is fire and that is in union, I recommend, if you're looking for help, go to the website, IAFF.org. They have a link for Center of Excellence. Look it up, give them a call. But it's very fire related, and it's very, centered on them, because being in our service, it's very different. I mean, we deal with those things. However, I want to help you create that circle that you were almost talking about. Like, say that you do have a listener in California that's like, hey, I really need this help, and they contact you, and you're like, well, you know what? I know somebody close to you. Let me get you in contact with them, and they'll take you out and help you decompress. I might not be able to do it because I'm over here in Iowa. I think putting out those feelers might actually be that's a really good idea, because it's like something what the IFF does is they train other firefighters to be what we call peer supporters.
Yep.
So if they call the IFF Center of Excellence and they can't necessarily get there right away or something, the IFF Center of Excellence can see who the peer supporters are and their local union and get them in touch with them to start helping them that way until there's an opening or something. So you can be that hub and then hopefully get people that are willing, hey, yeah, I'll take them out for a hunt. I'll do this for them, If we can create that, I think that's actually a really, really good idea, especially for if you target the rural areas where they don't have. I'm lucky because I have that outlet that I can use. There are other civil service like you who are in very rural areas who don't have the employee assistance programs that some other cities with a little money can afford. So if you can even be that contact person, so to speak, I really think that's a good thing. That's a really good idea, and I think you should definitely push for it. I'll tell you what, I'll be that first person on your contact list if you want. If you find somebody from the Houston area or Southeast Texas area, they contact you and say, hey, how do you do it? Could you take me? And you're like, hey, I can't. Tell them to contact me. I'll take them on. I'll show them a little bit about the area.
And I did have a guest on my podcast. His name's Logan. He's with Second Chance Outdoors, and he's out of Arizona. And I'm kind of doing the same thing with him. He's focused. He's more veteran military LEO side of it, but he wants to work with me too. So I mean, having LE military, now fire, and EMS, obviously, I mean, I think that's a really solid group right now. Absolutely. That's when we're done with all this, and we won't details. Let's work on that, because I really think that'd be something. Maybe we can even put some site out or something for people to go look at and sign up if they need it. And I think the anonymous, like if they're on a computer screen and they sign up for something like that, I think that would help, because it's not looking at somebody and telling them I have a problem, I need help. It's got that little bit of the screen blockage, so that way they feel a little bit better about, hey, these people don't know me type thing.
Right. And the whole stigma of, even though you feel really bad about yourself, you're still caring about what other people think of you.
Yep.
So weird. But Sarah Ann, I really do appreciate you sharing your story. I know we didn't get really too deep and personal with those stories. It was very general, and I think that was plenty enough to get the point across.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love what you're doing and sharing how the outdoors can really create that atmosphere for you to decompress, to let that anxiety slip away, to really evaluate yourself. That not a lot of people realize that something like that, especially in areas where I live,
Mm-hmm.
like you're in a rural area, it's a little bit easier. But
Yep.
I think if your message got to, for lack of a better term, city folk,
Mm-hmm.
and put that idea that maybe they didn't think of.
It doesn't have to be even hunting or fishing. It could be going out hiking. It could be camping. It could be biking. It could be anything. Just something that they're able to connect with. It's something that they're able to get outside and enjoy. So that way they can just have that little bit of, I don't have to think type things.
Right. But I really do think that the quote unquote city folk don't realize that that's an outlet sometimes, because they're so
Mm-hmm.
used to being told, go see a psychiatrist, go see a therapist, start your meds, all that other stuff. Maybe them listening and hearing this other possible outlet and how it can work and how it worked for you and how it works for me. I'm in the middle, not like city, and I'm not rural. I'm
Mm-hmm.
suburb. So I'm somewhere in the middle. So I'm really lucky in that I'm able to experience both, a little bit of both. But I really think your message helps people. And I personally want to say thank you for exposing that very much vulnerable side of yourself for other people to learn from. It's,
It's definitely tough.
yeah, it's very tough. And, God bless you, because obviously I'm not a woman and we share different obstacles as just being male and female, on top of
Mm-hmm.
being a mother or a father, on top of the social stigmas that encompass those things.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you're able to share that and you're finding different walks of life that are willing to share that with you and their story with you, that says
And the
something about.
sad thing is, on my podcast, I have not told my story yet. I have hinted that I have depression. I talked about my depression and I've talked about my anxiety, but I have not told my story yet. And I'm a little nervous to do that.
So a part of my story will be coming out on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
I have a guest on my show. His name is Adam, and he is the husband to another firefighter named Dallas. So it's a different take, because I don't think
Mm-hmm.
we hear that take very often.
No.
But you get a hint as to at least where my childhood trauma started in that episode. And I have literally have been fighting myself. Am I going to post it? Should I edit it out? Post it? Should I edit it out? And I think after talking to you, I think I'm just going to have to suck it up
Just post it.
and just put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what the guys at the station say. I don't care what the public has to say, because really I'm putting it out there for that one person that's going to be like, hey, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Help them.
Yep.
But again, I mean, it's going to be pretty rough, and I'm really exposing myself on that one. So I'm scared. But after talking to you, I really do think that you do help in a really good way. And as another human being to another, I want to say thank you for allowing yourself to be that vulnerable person and allowing people to come to you and look for that guidance.
Mm-hmm. And I want to say I'm proud of you for putting that out there, because it's tough. I know it.
It's not out there yet.
You're going to put it out there.
I am. It's definitely a scary thing, but yeah, I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to put it out there. And I think it's going to help people. I'm just, look at me. I'm like sweating right here. I'm like rubbing my hand. My nerves and anxiety is already going right now. Oh, man. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Is there anything you wanted to ask me or that you wished I would have asked you? Maybe something you want to share that I didn't really touch on?
Have you ever tried to kill yourself?
I hurt myself on purpose when I was
Okay.
young, way younger. I have been on the edge. We'll say that. I have never actually done the action and failed.
Mhm.
So when people say, "Have you ever tried to kill yourself?" I believe there's kind of different levels to that. I thought about it. I was standing on the bridge. I just didn't jump. And then I jumped, but I survived.
Mhm.
I was on the middle of that.
Mhm. And I've been on the bridge multiple times. I'm being perfectly honest. A lot of what stops me is I don't want my kids to find me. Like, that's like one of the biggest fears that I have is I don't want my children to be like, have that as like their last memory. So that's what stops me is my kids. But I have been there.
Yeah. And
And
it's a scary thing. I think you having the wherewithal and having the emotion and feeling about and the concern about your kids is beneficial for you because you
Mhm.
do still have that caring ability, but sometimes some people get to that point where it's just, I don't
And
care.
it's also I've been to places where they've done it and I've seen the after effects and I don't want somebody to find that, like, because it's stuck with me and I don't want somebody else to struggle because they found me, type thing.
So your concern for others definitely
Outweighs
outweighs
myself. Mhm.
your depression and your anxiety and your
Mhm.
thought, and I would consider that a blessing. I would consider that a blessing because it takes a strong person to really care about somebody else more than themselves.
Mhm.
Seems like that's what you do. And
I try.
again, thank you. Even if it's just your
Mhm.
kid, the fact that you care about another human being.
Mhm. And that's kind of like what I do on my show. I ask really hard questions and I try to make people be honest. I mean, it's very hard.
It is. It is. And when you asked me that, and there was that 10 seconds of silence, it was, you have now, okay, now it's because of you. Now, granted, when this airs, it's going to be after,
Mhm.
uh, but you have definitely had me share something else I haven't shared yet. So,
Mhm. And
but
that's something I haven't shared on my show either. That I have, been on that bridge, been super close to jumping, like leaning over, but not letting go, type thing.
I'm right there with you, sister, right there with you.
Mhm.
Oh, look, Sarah Ann, if you ever need anything, please reach out. Please call
Mhm.
me. I
Same
love you.
here.
I love your message. And I really do think we need to set up that contact list. So in case somebody does contact you or somebody contacts me
Mhm.
and they're in Iowa, just, hey, I have somebody you need to talk to. So
Mhm. Definitely.
one one last thing I always ask at the end of my podcast is, like I said earlier, what makes us fire can be a statement in that whoever's listening to this, I'm telling them this is a part of what makes us fire. But for me, as the host, for me, it's more of a question,
Mhm.
trying to find that one thing. And fire is the general term civil service. So, what do you
Yeah.
think the one thing is that drives these people with so many different backgrounds, so many different hobbies, so many different ideas and political beliefs and religious beliefs, we're all so different, even to the point where we fight outside the job. We passionately hate their ideas that much, but yet there's something there. There's something there that is pushing us to do that job, to help others, even though we all come from that different backgrounds. What do you think that is?
I think it's the love of helping people and that empathy that brings us all together. Because if you look at a firefighter, their love for, you know, that person, they're willing to go into a burning building for somebody they don't even know. For that law enforcement officer, he's willing to enter a gunfight to save somebody who might be being domestically abused or abused in some sort of way. And then there's us. We go into these places to help these people we've never met, and sometimes they leave impressions on our lives that we can't get rid of. And I think it's just that love of helping that brings us all together.
And I agree with you, and that is a very good point, and it's a very good answer. It's just, to me, there's that question inside that. Even with all those backgrounds, where did we decide that helping people was going to be it? Even
it's in our blood.
It's in our blood. There you go. Divine intervention. It's just unexplainable. Well, which is good, because then that means my podcast is just going to go on for a really long time, because I'll never find the
Yeah.
answers. So. All right, Sarah, thank you so much for being on What Makes Us Fire. You're an amazing human being, truly you are. And what people really don't know is the first time me and you have actually ever talked, really, other than just each other about our ideas on Instagram. So you're an amazing human being, really. I've enjoyed getting to know you, enjoyed getting to know your past, and thank you for sharing everything that you do. Everybody, get out there. Follow the Outdoor Medic on Instagram and on TikTok. It's Miss Sarah Ann. So, Sarah, say bye to everybody for me.
Yep. Take care. Be safe.
All right. What Makes Us Fire Family? That was with Sarah Ann. I want to thank her again for coming on the show and having the discussion we had about mental health. It's not an easy discussion to have, as you can see. I had to stop a couple times and really think about my words. She's strong, very strong, and anybody else that thinks otherwise, I dare them to try to get in her way. What Makes Us Fire Family, please remember to follow us at What Makes Us Fire on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. Also on YouTube, What Makes Us Fire is one word, space podcast. And of course, if you guys need to reach out for anything, if you need help with anything, you could always email me at whatmakesusfire@yahoo.com. Thank you all for listening and continuing to listen. Please continue to share. Also, please follow Miss Sarah Ann, the Outdoor Medic. She is on Spotify. She's also on Instagram and TikTok, I know for sure. The Outdoor Medic. Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much. Remember, stay safe out there. Go have fun. And let's show some peace.